the situation with the election is kind of hopeful in a way that it doesn't seem like there's anything going to be too extreme happening either way, whether Trump takes the states to court and wins, and then the election gets ruled in his favor, or whether he concedes and Biden takes over with a peaceful power transfer. It doesn't. I don't know. What's your thoughts on it? Do you think that anything is going to change much in terms of the economy or dollar printing, or like what do you think there?
Chomsky said it the best. The party's always in power. People have a illusionary viewpoint that there's a difference between the left and the right. The left is a left when it benefits the left. The right is a right when it benefits the right. These policies are interchangeable. They switch them back and forth. Candidates go from different party to different party. So for me, I always ask a simple question, regardless of who's in power, what party's in power, who controls Senate, yada, yada, yada. The regular average working person in the bell curve, like 90% of the population, no matter what, we are plebs. We get nothing. We don't benefit. We're not part of the inner circle. We're not part of the nepotistic society that they run. We're not part of this lobbyist that we get upside. No matter what, we do get more taxes. No matter what, more rights are taken away from us. No matter what, there's more privacy, or I would say lack of privacy, taken away from us. So like, we don't win. Like, you just look at history. You look at every single year, what happens? Less privacy for us, less rights for us, less freedom for us, more taxes for us, and just keeps on going, regardless of who's in power.
And the wool has definitely been pulled over everybody's eyes. Like the distraction from the real issues of fighting against surveillance and pro privacy, like hard money, sound money, like all of that stuff.
Like, for example,
liberty, like that's all under attack, and no one's watching what they're watching.
These no knock warrants, like they passed. I forget who was it that passed it. Was it I forget who passed that law.
Probably Biden.
Maybe. I don't know who did it. But it's basically without a warrant, they can enter your house and just take whatever they want under the guise of illicit activities. And it's the burden is on you to show them that you're not guilty. So therefore, you have to foot the bill for the legal costs and the lawyers. Think about that. We, as whatever you can call it, the legal establishment, the quote unquote legal establishment, police force, etc., all that stuff, they can come to your house and say, well, Brad, we have assumptions that you might be, a drug cartel. And we're going to take all these computers, and we're going to take your car, we're going to take your house, we're going to take your bank account. We don't know. We're not going through court system. We can hold that. We just don't know if you're guilty or not. But it's the burden's on you to prove your innocence.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's nuts. That's all infuriating, that stuff. But yeah, it doesn't seem like Biden's going to do anything different there. It's like, I was disappointed with Trump. A lot of things that he was saying, like he was going to change, but then he became.
Are you really disappointed? Are people like, I find it naive.
I was actually hopeful in 2016 that Trump was going to drain the swamp and that he was going to actually become, that he wasn't an establishment politician. He was going to stop spending.
Okay.
I was hopeful, but quickly, obviously that became, he's spending more money on the war and spending more money on weapons. He's spending more money on, he cut a few things, but he spent more money on the military than any other president. Like the $1 trillion deficit is like a new thing under Trump. He was on track to spend more than even Obama, and Obama spent more money than any other president in history. So he wasn't keeping really his promises.
The only way that we can survive this is city-states. That's the only way I see.
What is this? What is this, Civilization 6? We have to get in.
No, we have city-states now. Even Canada has city-states. People forget it. Aboriginal land is city-state. Legally. They have their own constitution, their own police force, their own taxation policy. They're a sovereign land apart from Canadian sovereign land. United States a little bit different because they have their own states and they have more legal.
I don't think enough people really care though about it for that to work. People like the convenience of not having to deal with garbage collection. People are gonna and policing and stuff. I don't think that's gonna, like, what's the.
What do you mean? There's still gonna be police.
Yeah, I know. I'm just thinking like that's kind of altruistic, but like
It's not
not likely
altruistic.
to happen. It would
My
be
version
nice if
no,
people don't even care about their online surveillance, like they'll gladly give up their rights and not care about somebody like Snowden or Julian Assange because CNBC or CNN told them that they hacked Hillary's emails and now they're an enemy of the United States because they gave the election to Donald Trump or some BS like that, when they're not even looking at the facts of how they are fighting for privacy and fighting for everybody's rights.
People will eventually care when the boot's so far up their ass and the water's boiling, when they have no choice but to care. And that will happen. I find it very naive, especially in Canada, because we're much more calm and chill, that people think stuff can happen here. I'm like, you do forget in World War II, we imprisoned born Japanese. And people have a very short-term memory. You do realize, do you understand what we did to the Aborigines here with our residential schools? Do you understand, like, not too long ago, from 1940s, what we've done to our own citizens in Canada? Don't be so stupid and fucking
or even
naive.
like what we're kind of still doing even now to still some like people that not in Canada so much, but in the US, like the drug war is still raging. It's still like prison population is
don't even get me
insane
started for that, man. That is fucked. That's
That's not
beyond.
going to change, right? Like what I was thinking that, like, because Joe Biden was one of the people that helped pass the crime bill in the 90s and was supported Clinton and like
Clinton's 3-strike rule. Holy
the
fuck.
3-strike rule. Like they helped usher in the militarization of the police, and 3 strikes you're out, and all these like drug war policies that what is that word? Disproportionately affected minorities and black men in inner cities. And now 50 years or 60 years later or whatever, he's still a politician, and I don't think he's changed that much. So with his vice president, Kamala Harris, she was also doing some pretty shady stuff when she was DA of California. Was she district attorney or what was she in California?
I forget. She like jailed more black people than anybody else or some shit like that.
Yeah, there was a lot of people that were like black men and minorities that were prosecuted by her for minor nonviolent drug crimes, and
But
she
that's
had
what
the
it was.
chance.
Yeah, that's right. Nonviolent drug. That's exactly what.
She was the DA for California, and she had like civil rights groups and everything were after her. So you got like her, who has a terrible reputation already for not standing up for people of color and ending these corrupt, insane drug laws and non-violent criminals, like ruining their lives, ruining families' lives. Plus, you got backed pretty much with the other, Bill Clinton and the Democrats in the 90s. It does not seem okay. Let's not be too negative though, because there was a really good trend of marijuana legalization and even hard drug decriminalization in some places. Wasn't it Oregon who decriminalized most hard drugs? And there was a few states that legalized psilocybin, I think it was.
Well, California in a nutshell is not legally decriminalized but not enforced.
That's great. Like we're moving forward. That's great. Like it's good to see that, but we need to see. It just sucks to see all these people in jail for nonviolent crimes, and I hope Trump pardons a lot of people. Like if he gets pushed out, like
he should pardon Snowden right away.
Pardon like 90% of the people in the for-profit prison system,
and get Ross out of jail.
Yeah, Ross Ulbricht too. Get him out of jail. I don't know. Can he pardon Julian Assange? Because Julian Assange isn't an American.
Wait, he's an American or no?
He's not.
No, he's not. Oh, then he can't. But he can give him asylum.
Okay. Yeah, so that would be awesome. It would be really nice if Trump did that. If he's going to get...
countries give asylum to most random people. Like you look at history, for example, in Africa, Uganda, it was Idi Amin. Idi Amin was a dictator, killed millions of people, and Saudi Arabia gave him asylum, and he died a rich man in Saudi Arabia, but he was one of the biggest sociopaths possible.
Crazy. So I guess it's not bad. It's not good. It's just more status quo. I'm actually a little bit leaning more towards the hopeful side of things, because I think when you look at it from a net perspective of just energy, there was more negative energy the last 4 years because of Trump. And I'm not saying Trump did these things, like colluded with Putin and he was a agent of Russia and all this stuff, but the energy was there, and it was fixation from social media. And like you said, like the AI basically like sucked everybody down the rabbit hole, the algorithms, and these companies are making record profits, but at the same time, it drove the people to seek out unbiased information. And that
conspiracy that Trump is a Manchurian candidate, that this is all psyops, and he's controlled opposition, and they put him in place over there as an scapegoat to create.
What's that theory?
I don't know. I'm just making it up on the fly.
Making it up?
It makes sense to me.
Like, give me something. I want to hear this. So this is a Manchurian candidate. All right. Well, there is something going around now about how they, people are saying that Trump is playing 5D chess, and he he was working with the DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, to bait the Democrats into doing fraudulent mail-in ballot rigging. So with this sort of like blockchain technology ballot printing or something like that, and it was a big sting operation. I think it's all BS, but
I think we find out tonight or tomorrow. I think Nevada's the last state for counting, and I think Georgia or something said there has to do a recount. I don't know. I'm not really keeping up to date with it, just whatever. But let's say Biden does win the Electoral College and gets the seats that he needs to get. Knowing Trump, I definitely see him appealing that and taking that to the highest level possible, for whether it's last time this happened with Bush and Gore, I believe.
Yeah, I remember that. It was like a month or something. It took
a while for the final results to come in.
I remember I was watching Bill Maher every night. I'd watch Bill Maher talk about it. I was 19, 20, whatever it was at the time, and my friends and I would just sit down in front of the TV and watch Bill Maher. It's always the comedians that seem to
but watch this. People talk about like the progressive party of Biden and Kamala. Biden's either going to die if he's president, or he's going to have to step aside because that guy's mentally ill. Not from a negative perspective, just too old. He's senile, man. The guy can speak English and can't even remember anything. And the energy for you to be commander in chief of the world's most powerful military. So he's going to, whether voluntarily step aside or be physically forced to step aside because he can't physically handle the stress of being president. Maybe Kamala Harris becomes the first female president. Who knows? I don't know. But mark my words, they're going to go to war. These guys they're going to invade Iran, or the war machine's going to continue. It's no difference. Like this whole idea of being progressive, this is like the most classic Machiavellian. You can go read the book. If you guys haven't read it, go read Prince Machiavellian. Fantastic book. Details a lot. It's all Occam's razor. It's like very common sense. They'll say whatever they need to say to be voted in power. Once in power, they have power. Fuck off. It's business as usual.
Obama took the U.S. from 2 wars to 7 wars, and
they killed more people with drones than any other president.
Yeah, but I mean, I used to say that too, but then I heard a good argument that, like, the technology for drones came up in his era, so it was just not really his initiative. It was more so just a situation he found himself in, just like how the 2008 or the 2008 real estate bubble collapsed the economy, and he had to print so much money. Well, somebody had to do something, and they were kicking the can down the road. So, but regardless, Obama didn't stop war. He increased the amount of theaters of war, and Trump didn't stop them either. Trump kind of made some concessions here and there, but maybe he took some troops out of Afghanistan. Maybe he tried to get out of Syria and let the Middle East.
The military industrial complex runs everything. That's it.
Well, Trump was no better, because he sold billions and billions of dollars of weapons to Saudi Arabia, who committed genocide in Yemen. So,
but from a geopolitical standpoint, you can see why he did that, though.
I mean, it all goes back for me to like Ron Paul's policies of non-interventionism, and why should you take tax money from the citizens to go kill people overseas? Like, we're not meant. That's not what our country in Canada or the United States is supposed to be doing. We're not supposed to be just going over fighting wars over oil and lithium and resources and stealing tax money from people to go do that. It's not constitutional. And there was no votes. Like, they didn't vote.
Mm-hmm.
Congress needs to declare war, and they haven't declared war since World War II or something like that. When was the last time Congress? Let's Google that. When was the last time Congress declared war? It's been a long time. So Japan, yeah, World War II. Yeah. So since then, it's all been illegal wars constitutionally. But yeah, whether it's Biden or Trump or Bush or Obama, I mean, the war is going to continue because it's good for the economy, it's good for jobs. But Trump was like, Obama was a bit of a statesman about it. Obama was just like politically like a good speaker, and you know, he would have a somber tone when he talked about it, and he wouldn't say things straight up. Trump would just be like, well, we need to sell them the weapons because we need the money. Like, that's $400 billion. You know, that's a lot of jobs. So like, Trump would just be openly honest about selling all these hundreds of billions of dollars of weapons.
It's a little bit more complicated than that, right? So they have to control their position against Iran. Saudi Arabia's biggest threat is.
So you tell me why, because I didn't follow that one very much. Why is Saudi Arabia and Yemen at war, and what's the justification for it?
Controlling the geographical power struggle for oil production. Simple as that. Same with Iran. And this is why Iran is with Russia. And so Saudi Arabia for the longest time was a powerhouse in the Middle East, right? So they controlled. This is why the United States turned a blind eye for the Wahhabism of Saudi Arabia. Do you know how many people or organizations Saudi Arabia probably funds through their Wahhabi ideology? Like a very twisted form of Islam. And United States, since the Ottoman Empire got kicked out in World War, I think what the final remnants for there was like World War I, they left Saudi Arabia. Britain came in, BP came over there, United States came over there. And ever since that, the United States pretty much I think the United States' biggest military base outside of the United States is in Saudi Arabia. It wasn't Turkey. Saudi Arabia or Turkey. But they have to, the United States, to have the relationship with Saudi Arabia, has to provide them, and it's all part of the deal, provide them the military means. Obviously, they make money from it, but the military means to have the might to go against Iran within the Middle East. It's a power struggle there.
So it says the biggest military base outside of the USA is bigger than New York City. Holy shit.
Is it Saudi Arabia?
I'm trying to find which one it is.
Or was it Turkey?
I think it's Iraq.
Oh. Iraq? No. Really?
No, I know they built like a multi-billion-dollar base.
I don't think that's Iraq.
One overseas base is vastly larger than others. It's so large that its footprint is bigger than the entire city of New York. It covers 303 square miles. Is this legit? What am I reading here?
Yeah, Wikipedia. Where is it?
It won't tell me.
Secret location.
Base structure. Yeah, it's on a need to know basis. I think I'm reading some clickbait here. Yeah, because it's making me read the entire thing and showing me a bunch of ads. Okay, let's see here. America's largest base. Oh my God. I can't find this. I believe you. There are big bases. There's lots of bases all over the world. And I remember that one that they built in Iraq was pretty a political sort of football that they were throwing around because it was massive and they spent so much money on it. And I think they ended up
here's a classic example, weapons of mass destruction with Bush. Let's go to Iraq. And my wife's family is Kuwaiti and Iraqi, and I have firsthand experience from their family there. So this isn't me reading the internet. This is me talking to people who've born and raised there, right from the horse's mouth. And yes, Saddam Hussein was a CIA agent, highly intelligent operative, was with the United States for the very longest period of time. They had economic treaties with the United States, and his Ba'ath Party was sadistic. Like, don't get me wrong. It's not like I'm not here clapping and celebrating Saddam Hussein, but he was the crazy motherfucker that was so fucking crazy that other crazy motherfuckers were crazy of him because he was the craziest motherfucker.
Yeah.
Like he was the head of the Hydra there. That even the other so-called clans and quote unquote warlords would not fuck with him with the Ba'ath Party. So he held this very fine, delicate balance of power in Middle East. And then when you chop off the head of the pyramid there, you create a vacuum. This is exactly what Hillary did with fucking Gaddafi in Libya.
Mm-hmm.
What Iraq is right now and what Libya is right now, it's fucking, I can't even describe how bad it is.
And it's not, like Libya, there's open slave trading happening right now. That wasn't happening when Gaddafi was in power.
Gaddafi was the same. Gaddafi was, do not fuck with him.
I read afterwards that I was trying to get to the truth of that, because there was that viral thing that went around during the 2016 election when Hillary was laughing about it. Like, we saw he died, and she was cackling about it. And it was just kind of like, okay, is that a joke or is that literally how she is? But regardless, they didn't care about Gaddafi or Libya until they threatened the US dollar, and they threatened to create the African petrodollar.
Yep.
And create a unified African currency. And afterwards I had read people like Nelson Mandela supported Gaddafi. People that we respect as thought leaders and stuff supported Gaddafi. So they didn't, I'm sure he wasn't a good guy either, but they missiled his entire family and evaporated his grandchildren. It was disgusting. And she's laughing about it. But I was talking to my wife about this the other day because she was listening to a podcast with somebody who escaped North Korea. North Korea is insane right now. And if they really did care about people and suffering and ending suffering and all this stuff that they try to sell war on, they would do something about North Korea. Because that's a crazy situation that's happening in North Korea right now. There's people starving, and I'll
give you a better example. I was at the DMZ zone, so I had a good 3 days to chat with people who escaped North Korea. So
you were in South Korea?
Yeah, I spent a bunch of time in South Korea, and I spent a while at the DMZ, demilitarized zone there. And I personally spent 2 to 4 days speaking with people that escaped North Korea and got the inside scoop of how it is. And so I'll give you a better example than North Korea. The fucking shit happening in China.
Right.
Like legitimate concentration camps, not like make-believe. We're talking about full-blown concentration camp with Uyghur Muslims. The no human rights policy. They are first, then Iran. They have the most executions. Then Iran has the second execution. These are public executions. But it's okay.
Well, yeah, the problem with China is that they've got a military, and they can't really just go in and take over like they took over Libya or Iraq or whatever. But even the case, if they were legitimately genuine about their concerns about Saddam Hussein and Gaddafi, they would go in and fix that situation in North Korea, because North Korea can't stop America from going in and overthrowing Kim Jong-un or whatever, in his harem.
So that's the way to do it. There's too much second order and third order effects when it comes to stuff like that.
I know, but if they really cared about it, they would go do it. So I'm just saying, they don't actually care about ending suffering and all this stuff that they try to sell us on and manipulate our emotions and stuff. What they really care about is the resources. Libya was a threat. Gaddafi was threatening to challenge the hegemony of the US dollar and create an African-backed currencies to trade oil in. So they had to take him out. Iran and Iraq have oil reserves, and so they had to go and take the oil and prevent them from getting a monopoly on the oil. And even Syria, the whole reason why the war in Syria happened was because of the gas, the pipeline that they were trying to build through Syria. Russia has the main pipeline that goes through Syria that connects to the rest of Europe, and Russia has the Gazprom bank has the monopoly on the stranglehold of the power in that region. And so Saudi Arabia is trying to build a pipeline through Syria, and that's when everything became, oh, well, we care about the Syrian people now. And then look what happened. They destroyed an entire country fighting over a gas pipeline, telling us it's about like Assad is gassing his people and they care about that. Meanwhile, Kim Jong-un or Il or what is it, Un now?
I don't know.
He's starving his people and has them all brainwashed, and like they don't care about suffering. And like you said, like the Uyghur Muslims, and there's like any religious organizations that start up in China, they end up sending them to concentration camps because they don't want anything to challenge the CPP.
The power. Yep, that's exactly it.
You know, like in one way, it's kind of fun, kind of funny, or whatever the word is. It's kind of a relief for somebody in China that is just going along, obeying the traffic laws and trying not to get their social credit score dings, you know, taking up the garbage, being polite, respecting the Communist Party, because they don't even have to think about Biden versus Trump. They don't think about politics. Like everybody is just Communist Party. It's just the Communist Party, and it's a brainwashing, but it frees up your mind from all this divisiveness because you don't have an option.
China will
I'm not
collapse.
saying I like that. It's an interesting observation.
China will collapse like any other nation through its own internal power struggles. It's the Ouroboros, the snake eats its own tail. So when Xi Jinping finally, I don't know, probably has to die before, because he's pretty much president for life for the CCP. Same thing with Putin. Though I read something today, Putin has Parkinson's and he's considering I don't fucking know. But you'll see eventually that through the mechanism of the Ouroboros and the different ethnicities within a country, the snake eats its own tail. You can only keep power for so long until your own power system and structure collapse on itself. Like time is against you.
Yeah, you were telling me before in a podcast that we did a while back that like the Chinese strategy of one of the strategies of war is just to send 1 million people over the border. Like they don't care about people.
That was one of the Cold War strategies in World War. Yeah.
They just overwhelm the enemy with having to take care of their citizens.
Yeah, and the paper is 1 million people they would send over. Like here.
Yeah, I mean that's like that just shows you that the way that the Communist Party thinks about the individual is not important.
I find it's hilarious. I want to say hilarious. It's not hilarious. It's actually sad that you have people here, and they're so brainwashed. You have people over here clapping and they are supporting socialism, whatever definition you want to label it as. But yet you look at the history of China through Mao. Mao Zedong was a fucking sociopath. You know how many people Mao killed?
Yeah, wasn't it something like 20 million or 100 million or
this conservative
like
30, 40
through starvation, right?
Yeah, starvation, camps, forced labor.
That was the great, he had this policy of the
Great Leap.
And it was to try to get people out of poverty, but it actually caused a lot of death through starvation, right? The Great Leap Forward, killed 45 million.
Stalin was involved in that economic mix because Russia couldn't produce a lot of food, so China was producing all the grain to feed the Russian army.
That was in what, the 50s or 60s or something?
Something like that.
So, yeah, a lot of people came out of poverty from his policies, but it was one of the biggest mass murders in history. And now you got a lot more people that are like doing better, like hundreds of millions or maybe even 1 billion people are probably doing better now because of his Great Leap Forward. But it's almost unsustainable that they can continue like this.
Or is it because the United States opened up the door with what's his face, the bureaucrat Kissinger, when Kissinger went to China and they opened up economic policies. And so if China wasn't United States became the buyer's market. The deal was to go there, get cheap slave labor, and pretty much it is slave labor. Different now, but it was slave labor. And United States became the vacuum. They became the buyers of everything being made in China. So if it wasn't the buy-sell marketplace the United States
Right.
created, China wouldn't be here.
Yeah, so much investment went into China in
Huge.
the last 30 years or something. It's just insane how they've grown. And we've all heard stories of the ghost cities and all that, where they just had this massive infrastructure rollout that helped employ a lot of people and do these amazing architectural construction epochs, really, that was like had so many people employed, and then they build these beautiful cities and then no one's in them.
Yeah.
So it's a big waste just to stimulate the economy. But like, what's going to happen with President Biden with the China situation? Because President Trump was very in your face about how China's manipulating their currency. China's taking advantage of the manufacturing. They're taking advantage of the trade deficit and all that stuff. So
everything you said is true, though. They are taking advantage.
Yeah. So, and he was actually standing up against China. He was the first president to challenge the one China policy. Like, he took a call from the Taiwanese president and acknowledged that they were a legitimate, like, there was a leader of Taiwan.
He also publicly acknowledged that Hong Kong isn't a free country anymore.
Yeah, I mean, one thing about Trump is that, like, if you're following the real situation, he's not this evil racist dictator that the mainstream news has you lead to believe, but he isn't a great president. Like, I'm actually happy to see that I'm not going to have to listen to Trump's voice anymore, or see his face. Like, that's
you're jumping the gun. Maybe not.
I'd be happy to see that. Like, regardless, I'm not really like, I know I'm not brainwashed into thinking that Trump is a racist. Like, you see that Trump just got more votes by Black and Latino and Spanish, or not Black, Latino, and what was the other demographic he did super well with? Women.
No, I just know about the Latinos. Yeah,
just in general, women. So more Black people voted for Trump this year than any Republican in 60 years. So Trump's obviously not this Nazi, like Hitler, racist guy that CNN and New York Times make you have to believe, but he is like a crude, poor speaker, bad example for children, not very statesmanlike, rude. Like, he is all these things, and it is kind of annoying to have to listen to him speak. And I always have to put it on at least 1.5x or 2x whenever I hear him say to get through it. But if Biden wins, which it looks like he will, I won't be too sad that I'm not going to have to listen to him anymore, and I won't have to listen to the made up, like, ridiculous things that they say about him. Like, I'm not a fan of him, and I'm also, I don't want to be his devil's advocate. I'm such a centrist. I'm like, okay, listen, I have to jump in when people are on Facebook or whatever and say, this isn't accurate. This isn't accurate. You're kind of brainwashed here. I do it a lot less now, but I'm glad I won't have to do that because he won't be talked about anymore. It's going to be awful. So in a way, it's good that I'm hoping there's going to be less divisiveness online. And I think that just like the Tea Party kind of faded away in their fervent sort of like time in the limelight, I think that the Trump, like the really hardcore Trump supporters, are going to kind of fade away too. And that it's not going to go to like civil war or some kind, it's not going to continue to grow as divisive as it has been. I think, sure, people are going to talk about it, but I feel like it's good for public discourse, even though for privacy, for the economy, for the value of the dollar, it's bad that another establishment politician is in power. But in a way, it's good. So I'm just kind of like neutral on it, but slightly leaning towards positive that Biden looks like he's going to win. But I also don't want to see Biden president, because I know all the crazy shit that they did. You know, they kind of like are not going to change anything. People's lives aren't going to material change under Biden. Not like people are going to get health care, or they're, going to see their taxes go down, or their quality of life's not going to go up. It's still going to be more insiders getting richer, and
listen, the name of the game is status quo. That's it. Keep the machine going.